Hello, and thank you for joining us on this webinar. My name is David, and I'm pleased to be joined by Sam Medlicott, Common Ground's Head of Paid Media. Today's webinar centres around a case study of one of Common Ground's clients in the education sector and how they slashed their cost per lead using Google's Performance Max campaign format. As well as the case study, Sam's presentation is jam-packed with actionable tips and tactics that you'll be able to implement yourself, and we're aiming to have some time at the end of the webinar to run through any questions you may have. If you didn't hear the announcement a moment ago, just a reminder that this webinar is being recorded. We'll send a link to everyone to watch the recording and download a copy of the slide deck after the talk today. And if you've got any questions as we go throughout the presentation, feel free to type them into the Q&A section, which should be visible at the bottom of your screen. Sam, I know we've just had a quick run through of your slides. You've got a lot to cover, so I'll hand over to you to get started.
Thank you. So let me just kick off. So this is... There we go. What I'll be covering today, so a real quick introduction of myself. What is Performance Max? A lot of it I'll just refer to it as PMax throughout this presentation. A quick case study of what's achieved, what to include, how to set it up, and what to test for better results. So yeah, let's get started. So I'm not going to spend any time on this. So I'm Sam, Head of Paid Media at Common Ground. We basically ultimately focus on driving high quality traffic that converts to websites. So I've got over 5 years experience and good track record of completing clients' targets. So here are some of the brands we've empowered, some of the ones within, that's Sparky by the way, some of the ones that we, like in the education sector, like Oxford High School, we've got University of Buckinghamshire, AUB, Arts University of Bournemouth, as well as like Salford Park School, so lots of experience within the sector. So just quickly, we'll move on to what Performance Max is. So it's a fairly new campaign type from Google. It's originally launched to take over smart shopping, but it has changed over time and evolved so that it isn't just around a shopping campaign anymore. It is very much lead focused as well. Its main goal is to increase awareness and drive conversions, and it does this by presenting ads on multiple different networks across Google. So you've got your YouTube, your search, your Discover, Gmail, Maps, as well as display. So it's one campaign that can put ads in multiple locations. And with this, what we introduced it to was one of our clients, one of our university clients. So the original goal was to increase the number of conversions, quite simple. How we looked at doing this was by introducing this new campaign type, which predominantly increased the audience size and the reach that we had to our target audience. A little bit more detail on the hows was we focused the campaign on the top priority courses. And by this, it was courses that were struggling to get the number of applications that they needed. So it wasn't the whole catalogue of courses, it was the sort of top 8 to 10, I believe. Each course had its own asset group. We targeted specific audiences, so you use a lot of signals and you need to make sure you put the right information in for Performance Max for it to work. So they have custom audiences like secondary school leavers, which are people who have graduated high school but don't have a university degree. Also website visitors, so we're basically telling Performance Max campaign that these are the right people we want on the website, let's get some more of those types of people in. And we create custom audiences around search terms as well. So we had Google search ads running prior. We use those ones, search terms, keywords, to be able to create and build the custom audiences too. And then we used high quality imagery throughout all the asset groups to make sure that the ads looked really good too. And then this is a snapshot of the results, and I'll go into a little bit of detail over the next few slides. But basically, we added an additional 3,000 conversions added to the 1,500 achieved by search. So it was a big improvement and big increase that Performance Max was able to bring. So when we look at the breakdown of this, We've got the Performance Max table at the top. So you can see here that for an additional £15,000 ad spend, there was 3,000 conversions achieved. And with this, those conversions included get in touches, applications, book an open day as well. So a good mixture of high quality conversions. The conversion rate was 4%, so slightly lower than the search, but still really high conversion rate. But the biggest difference was that the cost per click was only 41p compared to the search campaigns that we ran for the same period, which was 83p, which when you look at the cost per conversion, you can see there is that big difference that the Performance Max was able to drive a conversion at £5.18p rather than £18.03p. So with this, it's now, as we've got some more data, we've been able to move it on, and we're looking at ways we can expand it across the university further. So this was predominantly done for undergraduate. We have now set up them for postgraduate, as well as their evening and weekend schools as well. So we've tested it, it's worked really well, and now we're looking at bringing it across the other areas too. So here's a little bit more of a snapshot of the Performance Max results over month by month. So in month 1, the Performance Max campaign cost per conversion was 3 times higher than search. So it's not necessarily starts off like exactly where you want it. You need to have it goes into its learning phase. So here it was the cost per conversion, you can see on the bottom was 26, just under £27. However, from month 2, you can see there was a drastic decrease. And then the cost per conversion was actually 30% lower than it was for the search campaigns. Couple of months of building data, some optimizations, we then in month 4 saw it take another big dip down, and where it was then 60% lower than the search campaign at the same month. So overall, by having this, the ad spend stayed fairly similar and consistent over the last 6 months. But you can see in the top graph, conversions have increased massively month on month from where we first started to where it is now. So I'm going to sort of go into a little bit more detail, and if you have any more questions about that case study, then just drop them in the chat. So some of the things of what to include. So this is what Google recommends. Up to 15 images, 5 logos, up to 5 videos, is always up to a certain amount. So you don't technically need to maximize it all to be able to set them to run. However, what we recommend is that you maximize everything to get the better results. And this is what we have done and tested, and it is how we see the results improve, because at the end of the day, you're giving Google more options and ways of mix and matching to create the perfect ad for that perfect moment in time. So with this, 15 images, 5 logos, 5 videos, it is 5 headlines at the moment. However, there will be changing for it to be increasing to up to 15, to be in the same similar, to be similar to the responsive search ads. So that is something that will be changing over the next few months. 5 long headlines, short description, 4 description, long descriptions, call to action, business name, etc. So there is a lot of information you need to be able to give the Performance Max campaign, but by giving it all, you then can get the great results that we have seen. So I'm going to break down a little bit more detail into the images and text over the next few slides. So with the images, you need to include a mix of creatives in different sizes available. So in general, there's a square and a rectangle one, and you don't just want to have one variation, like one image, but you just keep changing it to crop bits out and stuff. You want to have a real good mix of assets, because at the end of the day, that's how you get the better results. Things you need to consider, and I'll go into a bit more like do's and don'ts of the images, is consider automatic overlays. So there will be instances where a call to action will be put on top of that image. So you don't want to have your own call to action button, because that will confuse things. And basically, you want a nice simple design to allow the USP to be the focus, and make that stand out. So we've done quite a few tests of whether to have images like text on the images or not, to have it just with the headlines and descriptions accompanying it. And overall, the more simple the image is, the better it works overall, and visually it looks the best. So here's some of my images do's and don'ts with some nice graphics to go alongside. So like I said, you want to keep the image as simple as possible. You don't want to overlay logos or text or graphics or like anything too complex over it. You just want to keep the image the main focus. Here as well, here's what I mean about you don't want to have call to actions on the top, because people can then think they're the clickable element to the ads, which is incorrect. Here is that you don't want to have logos and distract from the main image, like the main image should be the focus. So like you say here, you can see that you don't want to obscure the main image. And then just a few others, like this is generally across like your ads for responsive display ads, imagery and stuff like that. You want to have it in focus. You obviously don't want the image blurry. You don't want anything too filtered, like you don't want the classic like Snapchat filters or anything like that, which really takes away from the natural image. And you don't want to put borders or round edges off of the image too. So how the images work would be that Google will crop a little bit to make it fit the space available. So if you have it as a certain rectangle, you need to be aware that the images may get cut off slightly, but you don't want to have that border. You want it to be able to bleed over that line. And then with the text, like I mentioned, you want to ensure all the lines are maximized. Ways to do this is think a similar way that you would for your responsive search ads or your responsive display ads, is that you want them to be unique. You don't want them to be repetitive. Incorporate those like unique selling points of your courses, why you are different. Have you won any awards? Like the sort of stats that you get within, like from UCAS and things like that. Can you incorporate them in to make you stand out? And then include call to actions. So some of them, do you want them to download a prospectus? Have you launched a new course that you're trying to promote and you want people just to learn more about it? Or is there an open date coming up as well that you really want to push? All these things you can run separate performance max ads, and you can have different asset groups to be able to build up these sort of the focus and the goals to make it all coherent. And then targeting signals. So this is one of the most important things around like performance max, because you can have all the right assets, imagery, call to actions, text. However, if you're not sending it, not giving the campaign the best information, it's then going to send the ads to the wrong place. Then you're not going to get that high quality traffic that we focus on. So utilize data from the search campaigns that you have running, if you have them running. So by this, it's looking at the keywords, but the search terms, the demographics, the locations. Is there anything else that you can get from this? And you can also look within your GA4 as well to look at really understanding who your current audience and target audience are, where they're looking and how they're interacting. Because like I said, the more information you can give Performance Max, the better it performs. Consider the asset groups that you have, so the priority courses, or you can have courses that have low search volume. So from some of my experience, not every university calls the same course the same name. So it's looking at, do you call something interior architecture, but most universities call it interior design. Therefore, you need to look at what people are actually searching for. You can build that in within the sort of keywords, custom audience as well, just because you may have your search campaign, it will be just more focused interior architecture or something a bit more niche, but there's not the search volume. So with Performance Match, you can really widen it out to be able to include sort of more of a, yes, you may not be actively searching for this, but did you know this exists? Because there is some courses that do have those more unique names out there. And then include your sort of website visitors, your converters, so people who have converted on your site, but also your non-converters. This is to be able to say, this is the type of traffic we want. Like, they come to our website, whether it's from organic or from your email campaign or from other referrals, but you're just telling Performance Max, this is who we want. And then there is their custom audiences, like the school leavers, like people who are interested in actively searching in education, that you can layer on top as well to be able to create these signals for the Performance Max campaign. So here's some of the couple of things like settings and things to look out for, because Performance Max is changing all the time, especially from when it first launched. So there are always things that you can be doing, and you just don't want to set and forget at the end of the day. So one of the most important things to be aware of is that the campaigns do need time. As shown in the case study above, it's like month 1, you go, isn't quite where I want it to be compared to the search counterpart. However, over month 2, 3, and 4, you then really did see that the cost per conversion came down and was performed a lot better. So you don't want to expect to turn it on and within 1 week you're getting the results you want, and that's going to be how they're going to continue over the next sort of few months. There is fluctuation. So what we've seen is cost per click can fluctuate massively over the first couple of months while it's learning where to position the ads, who to, as well. So that's something to be aware of, that it can be a bit up and down, cost per conversion and volume. Like all campaigns, the automated bidding strategy does need time to be able to learn. One thing also to note is that it can take the campaign a few days to be reviewed, which is longer than your like search counterpart. So when you're looking at, for example, if you were doing one for an open day campaign, it's not advised to set it up 2 days before the open day campaign is about, or the open day is going to happen, because it may not actually start serving until the day of. So you need to bear that in mind when using it, and how you're going to plan your campaigns and the focus around it. Another thing to be aware of is that A/B experiments, you can't do them the same way as you would on your search campaigns. So how I like to do my search campaigns, especially around testing different bidding strategies, is I will split test the traffic, split it down the middle 50-50, run the experiment for 2 to 4 weeks, see how the data performs. But I'm basically targeting having 2 campaigns with 2 different bid strategies. You cannot do that with Performance Max at the moment. You can only have it as 1 campaign. You can't split test. This may be something that might change in the future. I'm hoping it will do, but at this moment in time, you then need to be able to be like, right, okay, I'm going to run this for a month, switch the strategy, run it for a different one for the next month, and then compare results that way. Obviously, seasonality and things like that can play a big part in the results, but it's just something you need to be aware of. And then this is some of the things how to optimize for better results. So originally you couldn't put negative keywords in Performance Max back in day 1. However, they've listened and they've gone like, actually, okay, we'll give you some negative keywords. So they are now available. These can be applied at account level. So you need to be careful about your wider activity, especially around competitor campaigns, because if you go, I don't want competitors to be there, then you then can't run a competitor campaign to target competitors because it's account wide. I spoke to Google the other day, they're launching some new ways that you can target brands and competitors overall in Google. So this may change over the next month or 2, but for now, negatives are at account level. New assets. So it'll be very tempting to swap images and videos weekly, bi-weekly. However, it takes a while for the ad performance ratings to come in. So once Performance Max campaigns get enough data, you can then see if an image, description, headline is low performing, good, or top performing. So you need to make sure you give the campaign enough time to be able to get those ratings, and then look at the low performing assets, swap them out to be able to test new ones. So this isn't a quick thing that you can do weekly. It needs to be at least every 1 to 2 months minimum. And then you also, like I mentioned previously, you want to be able to test different variations. Then there's also location targeting to be aware, and this is where you can look through your Google Analytics data as well to see how the performance, like which locations are performing really well, and then you can apply those as negatives too, and just so that you're focusing on making sure that Performance Max has the best chance and the best information, because generally the more quality information you can give it, the better it performs. And this is around this element too. Bid strategy targets, and they will be a need to be able to you may need to optimize them and change them depending on the time of year, especially around clearing. Obviously there's big peak in traffic there, so you want to make sure that they are set to the correct levels, as well as there may be other times around where applications due dates and stuff like that as well that you want to be able to consider. Just then a quick section on required budgets. So overall with Performance Max, we recommend an ad spend, starting ad spend of £3,000 per month. And this is very much to be focused on England or UK wide. If you're looking at more targeting a certain area, then this could be reduced. But generally Performance Max, you want it to be like a large location area, and we'd recommend £3,000 per month. And then just a little bonus section to conclude. I know I've whizzed through some of the slides, but then that means there's time for questions as well. Google Ads are launching another new campaign type called Demand Gen. So this is still in the beta stage throughout. So it looks very similar to Performance Max. So I've been speaking to Google and they've been telling me and talking me all through it and getting me set up on beta, the test plan for some of my other accounts. It looks very similar the way you set it up for Performance Max. However, it's more awareness focused. So it's less conversion, it's more increasing the reach. And they do this by predominantly running your ads on YouTube. So you've got your YouTube shorts, your in-stream, your feeds. It does include Discovery and Gmail, but because it is more YouTube focused, you then need to have high quality videos. This new campaign type will not work without video, which I know some people, it takes a little bit more time to be able to get those assets. So if I was you guys, I would be trying to map out content over the next few months to try and get those videos in place for when this rolls out across the board. That's everything.
That's what you think, Sam. We have had a ton of questions come through. That was brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Sam. That was really good. Look, just a reminder to everyone, we are now going to move on to the Q&A session. So if you've got any burning questions or you just want to pick Sam's brain on a few things, then take the opportunity, type your questions into the Q&A panel, which should be towards the bottom of your screen. Sam, I'm going to put you on the spot. We've got about 13, 14 questions come through already, so it's a good thing you managed to whip through those slides. The first question actually relates back to the case study that you covered earlier. Was that the cost of the campaign you ran decreased in the second month. First of all, is that something that you typically see across all accounts? And then secondly, is there anything in particular you did in order to decrease that cost per click?
So cost per click can vary. Like we've run it on multiple campaigns across multiple industries. It can fluctuate weekly massively, but it's like we would expect month one to be a lot higher than month two would be overall with the cost per conversion. So it's more focusing on cost per conversion rather than cost per click, because how we see it is cost per click can go up 1 month. However, conversion rates can go up either a greater amount, so your cost per conversion stays the same or even falls. So it's more looking at both of those metrics overall to then see how it impacts cost per conversion. And in general, was there any changes made? Like, no, because we set it up, gave it all the information, and we needed to let it have time to breathe and learn and use its sort of like AI qualities and use it to be able to get those results.
Great,
so it's kind of trust the process.
Yeah, thank you. And for that particular campaign, what was considered a conversion? Was it a contact form, phone call?
It was a combination of contact form, get in touches. It was open day bookings, phone calls, yeah, emails. It wasn't view pages. It wasn't anything like that. It was actually more tangible, as I like to call it, proper conversions at the end of the day, like downloaded prospectus, that type of thing.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there you mentioned about the monthly budgets or monthly minimums that you'd recommend for a campaign like that. Is there a daily budget that you'd recommend?
So around sort of £100 per day would be the equivalent, but I look at them as monthly because they do fluctuate the spend naturally, and you kind of don't want to be changing them daily to be £50 one day, 150 the next. You want to try and keep it consistent to be able to allow Google to learn and build up that data.
Thank you. Got a couple of questions about the collateral that's required. So the first question is if they're unable to create all of the assets that Google requires for a PMAX campaign, is there a preference on where to focus?
It's definitely images. So with Performance Max, if you do not provide videos, they will create Google will create its own videos using the image assets. They're not always like brand for like the best, but like looking in terms of looking at brand guidelines and things like that, because Google doesn't care about that at the end of the day, but it will create its own. So that's why having the right images is really important to it. But yeah, that would be the focus.
Thank you. And then relating to video, is there a style of video that works especially well if you are providing one and not allowing Google just to create their own one? Because I've seen different ones where they're really well polished, they're obviously professionally produced, even down to it's just like a rolling presentation with no audio. Have you seen any trends on what works particularly well?
Yeah, so you want ideally more of a high quality. You don't want to just have like a presentation slideshow and like have it naturally run and count that as a video. It would be using short clips of students, things like that. You don't need a 30-minute video, ideally between like 15 to 30, max 45 seconds. And it would be best to have little snippets, and then you can upload, obviously, quite a few videos to the platform and then allow it to test it as well. But nothing, you don't need to create like a mini movie or anything like that. But like still it's all about the footage, and if you make sure it's like in focus and things like that as well, it'll work well.
Great. I had a question about universities are often trying to reach multiple different audiences. So it might be undergrads, postgrads, clearing. How would you go about structuring a campaign for that?
So I would have separate campaigns for undergraduate, for postgraduate, for with clearing, because it's a time of year, I would then look at changing the undergraduate campaign and changing the settings in line with it and the build up there. But for the different areas, I would split it out within certain school, like universities. You can have like an engineering department, a business department, depending on how budgets are, because I do know certain universities, they have like their own little individual budget pots. I'd then separate them out into the different campaigns so you can have control of what is spending what. Because at the end of the day, Google will be trying to deliver the best cost per conversion and volume of conversions it can. So it may be like if it's all in one campaign with different asset groups, you then will have it focusing on whatever's delivering the best results. So then you're not going to get a fair 50-50 split of budget if that's what you need because of university politics. So it would be splitting them out into separate campaigns. Likewise, if you're wanting to target more like an international audience as well, I would split them out into different campaigns as well, because they are going to have different behaviours. So it may be then allow you for more budget flexibility of where you spend it. So having those locations split out.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question actually, was about the locations, if there's maybe targeting different More international students. Thank you. Had a question about the seasonality of demand. You touched on that already with clearing. I suppose universities often have very seasonal demand for the courses that they are promoting. Is it possible to train Google in advance of that demand so that it learns who to target before peak season hits?
Yeah, so this is why you want to have Performance Max on for a longer amount of time rather than just clearance coming up, let's whack it on and see what happens. By having this build up, you can then like give the right signals to it, so you can then test different audiences out as well. So when it does come to that peak time, you can just focus on increasing the budget, and then you've got the right elements within that campaign.
And once Google has gone through that learning period, does it continue learning for the duration of the campaign, or is it set in stone from that initial learning?
No, it's always learning. So because I'm trying to remember what this, I think it's either like 15% of Google searches every day are brand new ones. So Google as a whole as a platform is always learning, and that's why using automated bidding strategies, not just on Performance Max but across search as well, is really key to get the best results, because it is always changing. That is Google, so it's learning. Everyone's learning continuously.
Thank you. So let's have another look. So Performance Max covering search, should I keep running separate search campaigns?
Yes, because your search campaigns will generally provide slightly higher quality traffic than your Performance Max as a whole. There will be times when it's slightly different depending on what your goal is. But yes, because if you've got your search campaigns running, Google will put them as the priority for that search term over Performance Max, but Performance Max will step in as a search ad if you're not running, like you're not targeting that search term, that keyword, if it still thinks it's relevant. So with the search, you generally can have a bit more control over who you're targeting than you do with Performance Max. So yes, I always run it as definitely always search, and then Performance Max is a nice complementary channel to add to it.
And from what you've just described, then Google wouldn't be bidding against your search campaign using the PMax campaign as well for search.
As long as both search and Performance Max campaign are within the same Google Ads account, it will not compete against each other.
Great, thank you. Had a couple of questions about conversion. So the first one is it possible to optimize Performance Max for longer conversions? So the first conversion might be that someone downloads a prospectus, but actually the thing that the university wants to optimize around might be, hey, someone's booked in for an open day tour, for example.
Yeah, so that would be more around the settings in Google as a whole and how you assign value to certain goals, and then you're putting that information, like you're giving Google Ads that information to be like, yes, these are like brochure downloads or something is nice to have. However, at the end of the day, we find these more valuable like open day bookings. So by using different, like it doesn't have to be monetary figures, but you just say one brochure download is worth 1 point. However, an open day booking is worth 50. Therefore, you're telling Google your priorities and it will work towards them as well. It does take some trial and error to get the numbers correct. For some of the other clients, we've done this and it's worked really well in driving high quality conversions through, because we just feed, at the end of the day, you've got to feed Google the right information about your data, what you're focusing on, and then it knows what it's doing.
And with that, so if the first conversion was then someone downloading a prospectus, if they went away and came back 20, 30 days later, Google would still recognize, okay, fine, the original source was this particular campaign, and you've now booked on for this open day, therefore we're going to ascribe a higher value to you.
As long as it's still basically they're using the same device or Google, like they're logged into their Google. Obviously, if they do something on their mobile phone and they go on their school computer, it's probably going to come out as something separate.
Thank you. Someone's asked whether it's at all possible to measure conversions where applications are taken through a third party, for example, UCAS.
I'd love to. I would absolutely love to. This is always one of the like my how I love data and stuff like that, would be able to be like, oh yes, we can store this. Unfortunately, at this moment in time, there isn't. Like there's trying to work on ways of it, but especially around GDPR and things like that, we've got to be really careful of how we're storing data and analysing it and processing it as well. So not at this moment in time, but that would be one day. That would be really nice to have.
And kind of related to that and GDPR, is there any need to update any cookie information on your website if you're running a PMAX campaign?
No.
Just in line with the other
Yeah, it's in line with Google Ads.
Yeah, fine, thank you. Is it possible to make sure that a particular message always appears in the text ads that Google are running through PMAX, or are you just sort of letting Google decide from the range of different messages that you provided?
Well, it would be, you would then have the different asset groups. So if you were going to have more around open day, you make sure that all the messaging around open day is what you want it to be. So rather than having it split out, you just make sure it all, there's maybe slight variations, ones with the date in, ones without the date in, like book now or different variations, but you just have it all focused on what you want, and it will then use the mixture of the assets within that asset group to create the ad.
So I think an example that I know applies to Common Ground is that often in the text ads that we run on Google, we always pin a message about the sort of starting price that you typically expect to be working with somebody for, so that you're not getting clicks from people who their budget's £50 per month, for example, and then they're surprised that it's going to be substantially more than that. For universities, I guess you could imagine the same sort of scenario happening with, I don't know, Harvard and their MBA program costing hundreds of thousands of pounds, and I don't have that budget, but it's quite an attractive ad to click on if they're promoting an MBA, for example. Is there a way that you can maybe set a bit of guidance?
I would include that in the majority of the headlines. The issue with pinning across search ads is that it massively reduces your ad ranking. So it then classes it more as poorer, like the ad may be poor or like average, whereas actually it should be high performance. The higher performance it is, the lower the cost per click will be. So with Performance Match, you need that more flexibility for it to work, rather than try and push it into a little box, and that's then not going to get the best results that you want at the end of the day. And then having that clear message on that landing page would be what I would recommend.
Yeah, I suppose if you're optimizing around conversions on that landing page and you clearly communicate that there, Google will learn regardless. That's a really good point. Thank you. Are there any other tools that you use to set up or manage your campaigns to optimize them, or are you just using the Google Ads platform?
I review Google Analytics, GA4. As an agency, we use a tool called Agency Analytics to do our reports, and I use the data there as well, because it can split it out in slightly different ways and see the information, but predominantly it is looking at Google Ads, the information there.
Thank you.
Post
Got a delivery. So we've got a few more questions to go. So is it possible to identify low performing text or combinations of text and images? And if so, what sort of metrics should you be looking at to determine that?
So Performance Max doesn't give you as much information as we would like, but once it has enough data, and this is why you don't want to change your images and text too often, because it takes about 3 to 4 weeks to be able to get those ratings, it will then rank headlines, descriptions, and images as low performing, average, and top performing, best performing. That's where you get the information from. It won't necessarily, this has the best click-through rate, this has the best conversion rate yet. There's rumours that may be coming eventually, but that's been rumours for a few months and I'm still waiting. So you've just got to use the the more generic low, average, good or best to define what's working well, switch them out, change them for new areas, and you can see if there's certain trends, whether it's like headlines that include your name, school name, university name, and how does that perform? Is it actually just people don't mind that because you've already got the logo somewhere else? It's things like that you can then look and analyse.
And I guess the messages that you end up putting on those campaigns, they're really going to be specific to the universities and each of their unique selling points, aren't they? So I don't think there can be one single rule of always include this because it performs better. Actually, you just need to trust in the process and let Google learn.
Yeah, and like you do with responsive search ads, have that variation, make it unique, put your USPs, like if you've just won top student rating or something like that, include that as one of the headlines as well. So it's things, it's just making sure they're relevant to you.
Great, thank you. And final question then. So obviously this presentation is focused very much on Performance Max and Google. Are there any benefits, or would you recommend expanding beyond just Google and maybe including other platforms to reach the same audience at the same time?
Yeah, so you can use the likes of Meta, so Facebook and Instagram, to complement your other channels, because you'll hit, like with a university or even a school, it's such a big decision. It's not like buying like a bag or a jumper or something like that where you can quickly buy it and you're like, oh yeah, that's fine if I don't actually like it or it doesn't quite fit me. This is a big long commitment for someone, so you need to try and reach them as many touch points as possible. This is why not just running search, like you don't want to just run search campaigns. You want to be able to, yes, have your search campaigns when they're actively searching, have Performance Max when they're like, yeah, this is the right person, but also on Facebook and Instagram when they're scrolling in the evenings, another touch point there to be like, don't forget about that. We've got this open day running, remarketing campaigns as well. So as many touch points as possible with potentially slightly different variations of the images and messaging so it doesn't get too stagnant. That's what I'd recommend.
Brilliant. Thank you. Look, Sam, you've been brilliant, and you'll be pleased to hear that that's the last of the questions. So thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you for all your time spent answering everyone's questions. And thank you everyone in the audience for all the questions, all the thoughtful questions that you put to Sam today. Look, thanks all for attending. We will be sending round a recording of the webinar and a link to download the slide deck later on. If you want to refer to it or share it with anyone, please do so. If you do think of any other questions after the webinar, please do drop us a line. And when you leave the webinar, there will be a very short exit survey. If you can take 30 seconds to complete that, one, it helps us come up with topics that you're going to find useful in the future. But there's also a question in there about whether you would like Common Ground to perform a short audit on your digital marketing activity from what they're able to see about the metrics of your website. So if you'd like to get a bit of Common Ground's expertise, make sure to tick that box when you leave the webinar, and we'll be in touch. Hope to see you in one of our future webinars in the future, in the near future. Thanks, everybody.